Hello and welcome to the program. Public administration reform in Ukraine has passed the half-time of its planned rollout. This strategy, together with a new law on the civil service that went into effect in 2016, is intended to bring greater efficacy and accountability to Ukraine's public administration. Now, the reform effort has produced notable results, and to discuss this, we're joined in the studio today by Ivan Khilobok. He is a team lead for public administration reform at Reform's Delivery Office of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. Hello, and thank you for joining us.
Oh.
So, first question, since the beginning of 2017, so when the reform started, 58 directorates in 10 pilot ministries were established. A few changes happened. Now, major results, what are the major results that you would outline since 2017?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for inviting me and covering such important topic as a public administration reform and building a capacity in the government institution and state institution. So first of all, I would like to say that public administration reform is a comprehensive government program which includes 4 main pillars working on effectiveness, digitalization, and accountability of all public institutions. So sometimes people only focus only to creating directorates in some ministries, but in overall, it covers almost all central executive bodies. In 2018, it was a major important event in public administration reform. It's a Sigma baseline assessment, which was done for Ukraine public administration, first time in a decade, and I would say that pretty good marks was achieved by Ukraine to compare even with the EU candidate countries, which Ukraine is now not, it's only an associate country, but we are still on the same level, I would say, but still, of course, a lot of challenges are still in place in the public administration reform. So I would say that main achievements from last year, it is the introduction of strategic and budgeting planning of government action for 3 years. It really gives a long-term perspective of government decisions and predictability for citizens and businesses in policy. It is, I would also say that during the last 3 years, it was optimization of posts of civil service up to almost 50,000. So now from almost 300,000 to 250. So it is also gives a room for further improvement in public administration. Then you're absolutely right that for 10 pilot ministries, it was almost finished the reorganization and creation of directorates, new structures, which should lead the government support to develop a really comprehensive public policy with a public interest. And I think the main achievements and main progress was in a first most important pillar of administrative services and better public services delivery to the citizens. And there we have now around 121 electronic services available on government portal. We really now are one of the most open country in terms of open data. Now we are ranked the second in the world on the fastest openness of its data sets. And also today, government adopted the decision that now the number of mandatory open data sets are increased till 900. It's really a lot of open data that gives possibility both to business and citizen to look how government works and even increase somehow these data sets could be used for some business ideas and to used in business operations of private sector.
We'll come to digitalization a little bit after, but I want to focus a little bit about the services. As you said, there is a service of citizens. There has been a major developments, for example, for giving driver license centers and the creation of these centers. There's also been major developments in open offices, also for immigration services and things like that. these are the two sectors I can think about, but do you plan, does the administrative reform plan to expand this idea of like open, let's say, open centers, not and then to get out of this kind of post-Soviet ways of like kind of Soviet ways, with this like dark corridors and things like that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That in terms of service delivery and quality service delivery, there are, I would say, two major stream in public administration reform. One is a so-called offline and increasing of really quality and affordable centers of administrative services in the region. And last year it was almost 50 new centers opened in Ukraine, and now it is 778 centers operated, with even few of them in form of mobile centers who are going through some difficult regions and provide services and give access to citizens to the public services. And another big stream, it is electronic services and digitalization of all interaction between government and citizen or business. And I could say two examples. One for business, it is fully online, open and closes of private entrepreneurship certification, I would say it, and it was tremendous increase of registration of new so-called FOPs in the first quarter to compare with the previous year, almost 3 times more. And also it is electronic service for financial support of birth of a baby. So when a new baby is born, parents can fully online fill all the application and receive financial support from government, from the state for this, so without going anywhere. So I think it's both are important to give the citizens the most convenient way for them to cooperate or interact with the government and with the state.
So how would you say that this phenomenon and this trend of digitalization, how would you say it influences and or helps structural reforms, i.e. transparency and to fight against corruption, for example? How does it influence that kind of thing?
Yes, I think it has absolutely direct influence, and one of the pillars of public administration reform, which we are not very loudly say usually, but in fact it is focus on decreasing the possibility of corruption. So while making a process inside the administration digital, transparent, it is you just not only fighting with corruption, you are delimiting the possibility of it. So you even there is no possibility for civil servants or businesses to interact in some corrupted way. And this is one very important aspect. But also, it is the internal effectiveness and speed of the process. So we are now have implemented also so-called system of electronic interaction between inside the public administration, and now it is more than 600 state institutions and government bodies are connected within one system, so they are interact daily. It's more than 5,000 electronic documents daily are within the system, and of course it's significantly decreased the expenses on paper or time and all this, but also it is increased the speed of interaction. And now it is global trend of digitalization of public administration and public services. And now Ukraine, I think it's in this aspect is very good in line with global trends and with especially like developed countries.
Which brings me to my next question. Is it also a way to show, let's say, to Western countries that, and to attract investors from Western countries and to say, look at Ukraine, we have now a proper system and to show some sort of like stability, as you talk about long-term plan plus kind of thing.
Yes, you're absolutely right that effective public administration and so-called predictable policy making and comprehensive sustainable policy making is one of the very important area for investors. But I should say truly that investment climate depends not only the effectiveness of public administration, and even in public administration we are somehow depending on the development of other reform, like for example privatization or judicial reform, and each has some difficulties or challenges, I would say, but I think overall some improvements in public administration to dealing with business climate, with investment, with investors, for example, the investment agency of Ukraine or specific departments in Ministry of Economy for business climate improvement are now operating and showing pretty good results.
Now, when we talk about public administration, we think a lot also, of course, about Kiev and developments in Kiev. But what about decentralization? What are the results, and what are still the challenges awaiting Ukraine when it comes to, let's say, the administration in the capital and local administration, and as you said, other regions which sometimes can be closed from.
Exactly. So building effective governance in the country, it's basically has three main pillars. It's a public administration reform, as we understand this, and it is mostly focused on a central level, on central executive bodies. It's a public finance management, effective and transparent, and it is, of course, decentralization, the development of local government. And these reforms are implemented very closely in cooperation, but still they are all in a different level of implementation, different level of, I would say, political responsibility, and that's why it's really hard to compare now the effective cumulative effect of implementation of all these three reforms. But of course, very important part that we discuss and that we agree politically, most important, the level of centralization, what functions and what authority are on the central level, and what functions and what is authority on the local level. And this is still ongoing with some unadopted laws in Verkhovna Rada, in Parliament of Ukraine.
Now, and I just want to switch back a little bit on the digitalization. So the new systems fighting against corruption and fighting for transparency, I'm thinking ProZorro and those systems. Can we imagine that we could use, for example, Ukraine maybe one day could use the not the Bitcoin but the blockchain technology in a matter of dealing with judicial, the sale of judicial properties and things like that? Is it in the agenda? Will it be scheduled already, or is it any trying there?
So the digitalization is on the agenda of the government, and the interesting fact that a lot of bodies are on a different level of introductions and cooperation also within each other. So we have the state agency of e-government, who is leading in the e-government implementation and digitalization of public administration. Concerning blockchain, I know that there was some element of registers which are under the Ministry of Justice are now split and are now moved to the blockchain technology, and this is maybe one of the first time when on a global scale, even when public administration uses blockchain technology. But still we have a lot of things to do in terms of digitalization, specifically registration and registers. We have more than 100 registers and around 40 different bodies are now holding these registers. And now one of the key and so flagship project for this year is a so-called Trembita interoperability system, which should at some point connect all the, or at least the main registers to really give this unique database to be very convenient both for civil service and for business, for citizens.
And how to ensure, because Estonia faced this problem because Estonia is fully on this digital mode, and it's no secret that Ukraine is constantly under cyber attacks by Russia, not to name it. How to ensure the security of this kind of system when it comes to full digital system?
Yes, it's true that security and cybersecurity is on a global agenda and one of the key issue now. I would say that we have several institutions that are dealing with cybersecurity, and a lot of I would say business or civil society experts from outside of the government are helping Ukrainian government really to fight against cyber attack and provide cyber security for the institution. But of course, I would say that Ukraine need to do a lot of still to ensure its cybersecurity. But what we can say, if even USA can be under the risks of cyber attacks. So, but as of now, we don't have like significant so-called risks, I would say, on some strategic objects.
And now to conclude this interview, whatever the outcome of the elections which are going to happen on the 21st of April, how to ensure that the reforms you talked about, which is so the digital reform, as you said, decentralization and certain more efficiency of the public administration, how to ensure that these reform continues?
I think it's continuity and sustainability of reform is, of course, the main topic for this year. And I am pretty sure that the role of civil society, the role of international partners of Ukraine, with new government, whatever elected on an open election, and should be like discussed and how to say it, not promote, but explained on a level of why it is important for the country and not for and could not be viewed from the very narrow political agenda or very narrow political forces who are under this. So all understand, we are fully understand that public administration reform, for example, is a prerequisite for European integration, and actually it's a prerequisite for success of any other reforms, because reforms are done by people, by civil servants mostly, and to have effective and professional civil service enables all other reforms. So it's interesting that this reform should be of interest or in focus of any politicians who come into party, because it's instrument also for them to provide changes and provide transformation of the country for the citizens, and because of citizens or who elected them.
Well, thank you very much for this overview. It was a pleasure to have you in the studio today.
Thank you for inviting.
That was Ivan Khilobok, Team Lead for Public Administration Reform at Reforms Delivery Office of the Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine. Thank you for watching the program, and stay tuned for the rest.